Hey guys, it is Wingy here and welcome back to a brand new video. Today I'm going to be talking TV shows, specifically ones that I think need to go. TV has become a more and more popular medium as time has gone on, and some would say some of the best stuff is on TV. Even big actors that were movie stars are now moving towards doing television instead. And I know I'm going to get the whole argument of, if you don't like it then don't watch it. But that isn't the issue. I did used to like these TV shows, they've just completely run out of steam. And instead of certain networks pumping all this money into these TV shows, I'd rather these three suggestions that I'm going to give would just go so they can make way for something new and something fresh to replace it. As I say, this is just my opinion. You're allowed to disagree or agree. It's a free country. First up is The Big Bang Theory. Now, American comedies and sitcoms have been very hit and miss. You have some absolute classics such as Friends, and then you have very middle of the road ones like The Big Bang Theory. Now, I did used to like it. It was one of those shows that I felt like I could relate to these characters because they're very nerdy, they're not good with women, they're socially awkward. But as time has gone on, the show has become more and more stale. And considering the amount that the actors are paid per episode, I just don't think it's worth it. And I feel the show itself has just completely run its course and they are literally dragging it out for the sake of it. It just isn't funny anymore. They keep repeating and reusing the same gags over and over again. And it feels like every episode is more or less the same. Now, I am aware that characters in the show have grown and have evolved, but for me, the characters themselves, they just weren't that interesting to begin with, so I don't really care about whether Sheldon has sex, or if Leonard and Perry... Perry? If Leonard and Perry get... Why do I keep saying Perry? I'm thinking of Matthew Perry from Friends, fuck's sake. And I don't really care if Leonard and Penny get married. The thing is as well, as I mentioned before with Friends, that's a show where the characters you know from the get-go and you care about them, you want to see where they end up. The whole Ross and Rachel thing, when you consider Leonard and Penny, it just isn't the same. And a lot of people will say, oh, it's unfair to compare it to Friends. But Friends should be the basis of most of your comedy shows nowadays. That is the level that they should all aim for. Friends, you can watch it over and over and over and it is still funny. You may know it word for word, you may know the jokes, every single line, it's still entertaining. The Big Bang Theory ran out of steam, and then when you go back and watch the previous episodes, you realise they're not actually that good in the first place. Watch an episode once, you get everything you need from it, you watch it again, it's boring. And when you look at the cast as well, yeah, they're perfectly serviceable, but none of them are really going to go on and do other things, are they? They're not good enough actors. I can't see any of them in a film or a TV show, and I know some of them have been in other things, but they're just the same character in everything. They're not really talented. Bring something new and fresh to the table as opposed to the stale shit that The Big Bang Theory is now. Moving on next now to a very controversial one, but one that I think a lot of people will agree with me on. Yeah, agree with me on. The Simpsons. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that The Simpsons is the longest running cartoon series. And that is impressive. You know, a lot of cartoons now, well, a lot of TV shows in general, they don't really have longevity, let alone the impact on the culture and society that The Simpsons has. The only problem is, though, similar to The Big Bang Theory, it just isn't funny anymore, and they're just dragging it out for the sake of it. And I hate saying this because everybody loves The Simpsons, but it ran out of steam a long time ago. Most people will admit it just fell flat on its arse and it's not really recovered since. You have seasons 1 to 10 which are stellar, they are fantastic. Then you have seasons 11 to 15 which aren't as good but they're still pretty enjoyable. And then after that you have the Simpsons movie, which I personally love, but all the other episodes, they are very hit and miss, but most likely miss. It would be sad to see these characters go, but if you have nothing interesting for them to do anymore, or you can't think of new funny scenarios for them to live in, then there's no point in doing it. In fact, I'll be honest, I prefer Matt Groening's other series, Futurama. The difference is though, Groening knew that he should have ended it because it was right for the story. I'll be the first to admit, as much as I love Futurama, and it is probably my favourite cartoon ever, it will never have the cultural impact like The Simpsons has. No other cartoon will, but at least he ended it when it was right to. The Simpsons, I feel its legacy is going to be hurt and tarnished more than anything else the more and more you keep dragging it out. There was something that I saw about The Simpsons being over soon. I don't know how true that was, I don't know if that was rumour, but if it is true, I am so relieved because this show deserves to be remembered for the highs. It should not be remembered for that cartoon that was once great, but then it just slowly turned to shit and was just dragged out. It's a shame, but it does need to happen now. And for my third and final suggestion, I'm going to be going with BBC's Top Gear. Top Gear is obviously the long-running car show on the BBC that used to be presented by Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May. However, a few years ago, an incident with a producer meant that Jeremy Clarkson was fired from the programme, and then subsequently, by their own choice, Richard Hammond and James May, they also left. The main issue that the BBC had, though, was that Top Gear just so happened to be their biggest show. So what do? Do they cancel it, or do they bring in new people that aren't going to do as well? They went for the latter. I don't necessarily disagree with why Clarkson got fired. My issue is, though, the BBC thought that the show itself was bigger than the chemistry between those three presenters. The problem is it wasn't. It got to a point where people didn't even watch Top Gear because they were interested in cars. People watched it because they wanted to see three middle-aged blokes dicking around. And as soon as they lost that, they lost the show. But yet they kept it going, and they brought in new presenters such as Matt LeBlanc from Friends, Chris Evans, Sabine Schmidt, a German driver, I think, who has been on Top Gear a few times before, and a few other people that you've never even heard of. And what they tried to do was replicate what Clarkson, Hammond and May had done and had been together with people that had zero chemistry and clearly don't get on. So it just looks like a cheap rip-off of what came before. After one series, Chris Evans, who I fucking hated after that, he got so cocky saying, oh well, ratings and this and all that, and you know, he left at the end of one series. And I'm glad he did, because he left with his arse in his hands. But that didn't really help the show. The show is still going now, and I don't understand why. Like I said before, you lose those three, you don't have a show anymore, and it's clear that they don't. And again, similar to the Big Bang Theory and the Simpsons, it just feels drawn out for the sake of it. I really think the BBC needed to cut their losses on this one, particularly after that first series, which was disastrous. Some people out there, they may enjoy it, they may like it, but I think what most people will have to admit, whether they like this new version or not, is that the show isn't the same without those three, but not for the good. And what makes it even worse is that those three went and signed a deal with Amazon Prime, and they have a brand new show known as The Grand Tour, which frankly is 100 times better than anything that Top Gear has done since those three had left. It isn't perfect by any means, but it is clearly the superior of the two shows. BBC should just focus on other things. Focus on Strictly, focus on Doctor Who, focus on any other thing. Just forget Top Gear. The Grand Tour has won on this occasion. As I said before, I don't think that the BBC were wrong to get rid of Clarkson. I think it was 100% the right decision. But Clarkson is one of those divisive figures where even when he does something monstrously wrong, which he has done on many occasions, people still like him and people still want to talk about him and see what he gets up to. He's entertaining. You throw Richard Hammond and James May into the mix, you've got what people want. BBC, they don't have what people want anymore in terms of a car show. That's just the way it is. But they're just what I think. If you love or like any of the TV shows that I've mentioned, that is entirely fine. You can. But I'm just saying, as a fan of all of them, at one point, I can admit they're not the best anymore. Maybe they may improve. They may do. I don't know. I just can't see it happening though. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you agree with my three choices? Do you disagree? What other TV shows do you think need to be cancelled? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it and subscribe if you want to see more on my channel. You do that, I would love you forever. Until next time though guys, take care of yourselves. Goodbye. Moving on next.